Next in my lineup of short course trucks, desert trucks, and trophy trucks is the Hobao Hyper 10 SC. It's a 10 scale, 4-wheel drive, almost ready to run kit, and I've been looking forward to showing you this one because I didn't know much about Hobao before I got this thing, and if I wasn't doing this channel, I don't think I even would have bought it because I just would have been looking at the big brands that I'm familiar with, and that would have been a real loss. Let me show you why. So the box this thing comes in has multiple uses. On one side, there's a panel that shows a nitro vehicle. On another side, it's a panel that shows a ready-to-run thing with just brushed, cheap electronics. And there's an action shot on the top. But nowhere on the box does it say almost ready to run. So clearly they use the same box for multiple things. But if you're going to buy one of these things, the Hobao Hyper 10 SC, let me encourage you to get the almost ready to run kit. Have a look at this photo. This is what you get in the box, under the body. So in the top, there's a body, clear body, and a manual, and a big bag of shocks, which you need to assemble. And underneath you've got the chassis, and you've got the tyres and their foams sitting on top of the chassis, and then there's the car underneath. And you can see it's got plastic wheels and no electronics. Now I suggest that this is the way to go. Now here's a photo of the electronics I'm using, and I've gone with just a decent, basic but reliable kit. The servo is my cheap and cheerful WP5323LV. I like that servo, and it's just the BL120. Now the BL60 probably would have hacked this, except I went for a 3250 kV motor, and it's running with the 12-tooth pinion that came with the car. 32 dot pitch pinion, I should say too, pinion and spur. Now the body you paint yourself. I just stuck some tape on it and just kind of went to town. If you don't like this kind of finish, and I've gone for a bit of a grungy, splash dirty look here, what you do is you paint the white first. I painted the black first to get this effect. It's not for everyone, but if you still want to do a fade like this, what you do is you always start with the light colors first and then fade back. But if you do it this way, you get some interesting little overspray and stuff, which sometimes it looks bad, sometimes it looks good. But when you add some lines or whatever other accents you're doing before you even add stickers, it can turn out all right. I don't mind it. As I say, not for everyone. And I did the same in the back with the stripe as well. So if I wanted a clean stripe, you always do the light colors first, then you mask or whatever. You don't even have to mask then. You've got to mask the whole body. That's the body. The stickers it comes with are absolutely fine. Right, underneath, it's an interesting little chassis, isn't it? We've got an exit hole for stones and stuff under the steel spur, which is, as I said, 32 pitch. You've got these interesting profiled A-arms, and they're different front and rear. They're quite small front, but there's plenty of material there. And there's a bit of adjustment too. And the other thing that's unusual with this car, and if you look at the photo I showed you of the chassis just sitting on the work mat, it's evident here too. See the rounded kind of sides here? Many cars have them flat, but I kind of like this. It's attractive, and it's also going to help the body to not crack around a corner. Here, I'll pop the body off because it's easier to show you what's underneath. Now you've got to glue the tyres and their plastic wheels. There's the inside of the body. It came out all right, didn't it? Right, here's the machine. Now, it's got some protection, but it's flimsy looking protection, right? But you're not going to be doing this inside the car. The body's going to be sitting over it. So it's actually going to it's going to compress nicely. That's the cost of having bendy plastic like this. It's going to be captured by the body. So that's not a bad feature. If I really cared about the body, I could put a foam, sticky-sided foam on the back of this thing on the roof to help protect it from being scratched through. It's probably not a bad idea. Nice thick towers, well, reasonably thick anyway. It's the same thickness as the Alu on the base, which looks to be 3mm. They're Alu body shocks as well, and you put them together yourself. Bell crank steering, and it has the servo saver on the right hand side at the front there. Adjustable body mounts, and you can move them around if you need to. It's got a nice little headache bar or crash bar on the front. The assembly is actually quite nice. There is standard split rim size as well, bigger on the inside than the outside. Here's the Ackerman angle. Quite good. The turn-in is going to be pretty good on this. Front and rear is dog bone on the inside and CVD on the outside. So that's interesting and kind of nice. We've got sway bars included front and rear too. Now, when I said at the start it would have been a shame to miss out on this car because I just don't know Hobao here in Australia very well. I'm so glad that I did this for the channel. It's just a really well thought out car. I've got my electronics sitting there. You could park them on top of the servo or in the center, but I chose to put them down low. Yes, that means more crud could get onto it, but I just thought I'd try and keep the weight down low. I'm not going to be bashing this in a muddy fashion. I've secured the battery strap to the fiber reinforcing lever that goes across the center shaft, which is a dog bone. Doesn't have any center bearing to stop it from spinning, but that's because you have a center diff in the middle here, so it's not going to have that big vibrating slap like you get in some of the cars that don't have a center diff. So it's a mid-mounted motor. There's room to go quite long if you wanted to. You just need to relocate this guy, and a nice aluminium mount as well, so that's going to be good for heat dissipation. You can get the mesh set just right. Hear that? Just barely moves, so that's good mesh. And there's just alu even when they didn't have to, so that's rather nice. They're reinforced fiber braces for the chassis. It's actually quite rigid. You can't do it from here though, because these guys are really nice and soft. And the attractive thing to me was the price. And it's not just the purchase price, which is going to vary over time, but it's all the parts as well. If you look at the website, which I'll put in the description below, not a sponsored video, I bought this myself, you'll see on Hobao's website, they've got stuff like a new body is $31. That's a very reasonable price, don't you think? Especially when you consider the price from some of the Horizon or Traxxas brands for a new body. That includes the stickers. It's a clear body. I mean, $31, you're going to complain about that? They've got spare parts for the whole car. It's well supported. It's a generous sized battery tray. And the nice thing about this battery tray is that it's just screwed in with a couple of screws. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can fab your own or whatnot, but it's actually a really nice wide tray. I mean, even the cap for the antenna thing here is, for the antenna tube, it's aluminium. They've really gone out of their way to make this nice, haven't they? The receiver I'm using almost doesn't need reviewing because you're adding your own electronics, but I'm using my Noble MB4 Pro from FlySky, AFHDS3 of course, and this system that I've installed is a 2 and 3S system, but you can put however many S's in your car you want because you're putting your electronics in. Now I haven't added the battery yet, but this is a very lightweight car, 2.4 kilos, that's 5.24 pounds. For the weight of this car, 3S is probably the sweet spot, I'd say. And you also don't want a hulking great battery. I'm going with a 3 amp hour or 3000 milliamp hour 3S battery, 40C discharge, that's probably about right. Anything up to about 5 amps would be good for this size. But honestly, this car, just like most of the, especially the lighter cars, they will reward a smaller battery in here. So a 22 to a 4000, probably about the sweet spot I'd suggest, particularly if you've got the 120 or the 60 here and a 3 to 3,500 kV motor and just the stock gears. Well, the value you can't argue with, right? You've got the alu shock caps and the sway bars that Traxxas doesn't give you, and you've got the metal shafts that Traxxas doesn't give you for that matter. You've got a decent servo saver that not all the brands give you. You've got nice alu towers and a nice center brace here that a lot of the cars don't give you. You've got lovely rubbery plastic that's going to bend in an impact and do its job without snapping. There really is a lot to like on this car. I don't know what the tires are going to be like yet, but they feel nice. The foams help bulk them out too, and the wheels are thoughtfully made. I'm just all around happy with this car. I think we should get it on the track and see what we think. Let's go. There we go. Ooh, it's stable. We rolled a tire. Oh dear. Okay, let's see what we think of this thing. It's got a nice balance to it. Haven't been down here for a while. I'm using the default settings. I haven't tuned the ESC at all. And I'm using that 3000 milliamp hour flat profile, low profile 3S battery, which is quite good. Now the center diff on this thing sure makes driving easy. There's no gyro running here. It's just me in the car. It's very lightweight. I tell you what, it's one of the lighter 10 scale cars we've got. And I've rolled that tire again. I need to get better glue. Alright, it's a few days later. And now we have glued tires. We're running 3S. And the system I put in is 2 and 3S compatible. The reason the tyres rolled off the rim last time was because I just had a few dots around the rim. Oh, that landed nicely. Yeah, I didn't do a proper job. You're supposed to let the stuff trickle around on the inside of the bead, and I didn't. Anyway, now it's done, so the tyres should stay on. One thing that stands out to me about this car is just how light it feels. It is actually physically lighter than other cars too, but it just feels very, very light. Now, it's an unexpected flip, that. Oh, I think it's my jump. It's what's left of it. I do owe it some maintenance. I'd say with all the rain we've had, the thing's probably worn down quite a bit. So as long as you're not hitting it too hard, it's okay. But I tell you what, this thing does nice. It does like to stick to the ground. Remember, we've got sway bars at each end. They're not particularly aggressive tyres. There's plenty of slide, and this is kind of like a hard clay surface with plenty of submerged rocks just underneath. So there are plenty of hard surfaces that are trying to grab the car, grab the tyres, but it otherwise slides nicely. And this is being filmed in the middle of winter, so the ground is largely damp. There's a little dust. We haven't had rain, but it tends to be damp here, so that's that. But I tell you what, I said this earlier. For me it's last time, for you it's the same video. There's no gyro on this. I've got fairly neutral settings on the ESC. As far as there's no drag. Oh, is there? I think I put like just a tiny amount of drag brake on it. Wow, back on its feet. That's several times it could have landed upside down. Although some of these newer cars, Horizon's doing a few of them with like the Horizon brands with their interiors. They're very pretty interiors like Losi and Armour. The benefit of having just a polycarbonate shell is that the weight is kept nice and low. Combine that with the fact I'm using just a 2200 milliamp hour 3S, not a big brick. It's just a lovely balanced thing, lovely balanced car, and it lands on its wheels even with a bad little slide or a flip like that. So far I haven't had to do a walk of shame. I can see I haven't set my endpoints properly for the left either. That's alright. This is very easy to drive. Honestly, I've not gone above about half throttle so far. That's full. But I can't really show you full throttle here with any meaningful... There, that's full. Someone with more skill could be on the throttle more. Rather than stabbing at the throttle, what I'm doing here is making just smooth changes, like I'm easing on, easing off. I'm not going rev, rev, rev. Just helps the car stay composed. Now, when it landed, I don't think I'll have enough detail to give you a slow-mo then, but the back wanted to kick out, but it just got drawn forward beautifully. I really like this machine. Now, it came with the oils for the shocks, including, and the diffs. I followed their build direction for the diffs. Sounds like it's picked up a stick or something. The gears are exposed. Speaking of diffs, that is on the center. Here, I'll pick it up and show you. gosh, this is nice to drive. All right. Okay, now underneath we've got exposed spur and pinion there. It's sitting just forward. As far as heat goes, everything's cool to the touch on 3S, so lovely. Yeah, the servo is just a really nice budget choice. And that Hobby Wing combo is also an easy winner. I'll put all that in the description, what I'm using. Yeah, I like it. So, what do we think of this car? I would have preferred a full build from scratch rather than this almost ready to run business. But having said that, putting it together was certainly easy. Getting started with a car, I think this is a very friendly option for newcomers to this niche of the hobby. And certainly a car that handles so nimbly as this, with reasonably budget, though brushless, budget internals. There are some big rocks and holes down there. It's why I roll there a fair bit. I need to build a proper track one day. I think many people are going to be quite pleased with their purchase. Add the fact that you've got that center diff, you've got the nice LU shocks, you've got sway bars, and you've got a very lightweight car that has still nice quality parts, you know, steel axles, shafts and whatnot. It's actually quite difficult to find fault with this vehicle, particularly for the price. I know Traxxas comes up a lot because the Slash is so phenomenally popular. The Slash gets compared to a lot of stuff on my channel and elsewhere, just because it's ubiquitous with SCTs, really. But to the point, anyone who's feeling a bit adventurous with departing from what everyone else does, you'd be hard pressed to be unhappy with the Hobao. I can't speak to durability yet because I haven't driven it for hours and hours. I have driven the Slash for hours and hours, and you may recall I busted that thing, although to be fair, I busted it on a big jump early on. This thing hasn't done any big jumps. We should probably rectify that, shouldn't we? But you'll be happy with the kit, I expect. It's light, it's easy to drive, it looks good, and you get the satisfaction of having built something, you know? Right, let's give it a bit more bigger, unfriendly air, which it's not designed for, just for fairness, I guess. I don't really want to do this. This is vehicular abuse. Battery's going flat too. But to be fair to the Slash and to anything else I reviewed, yeah, we don't have enough juice left in the battery to correct its trajectory, but you know what's nice? It doesn't seem to be needed. It's taking it. I can't show you any nasty crashes unless I do it on purpose, like nosing it into the side of the next hill. But I mean, it seems to take it pretty well. And look at that, on its feet so often. There you go, there's a good one. Everything breaks if you abuse it hard enough, and that will include this car. Notice that as this starts to pop out, you're eventually going to find wear on the back of this polycarbonate. I noticed the front was collecting grass and mud earlier. What's causing that? Oh, okay, me deforming the body. Everything looks good. Shocks haven't leaked, and look, they're a lovely, did I mention this? They've got the boots on them as well, the boots on the shafts, so they're shielded very nicely indeed. The plastic in these A-arms is quite solid. I like the angle of your shocks as well, the geometry on this thing's quite good. The one thing I'd change about this car, if I was changing something, would be the dog bones, because those cups tend to wear out with use. But having said that, it's not difficult to replace them. And look, I don't see a lot of damage under it. We've been blatting around on a rocky track, so you're going to get scratches on anything. But yeah, it's holding up just fine. Now, the body is supposed to be behind the bumper or not? I can't remember. Yeah, it probably is, so I just did that with it in front. My bad. The back I'm pretty sure is meant to be behind though. Yeah, it is. So, there you go. I really can't complain about this car. She's a lovely car. And we just hit low voltage, so there you go. Alright, well that was a full battery, only a small one, 2200 milliamp hour. The body doesn't look overly worse for wear. Now one thing that happens with short course trucks often is you'll get the tyres scraping the paint away very rapidly. I see evidence of the tiniest amount of scraping, but it seems to me that the wheels aren't touching that except on full travel of the rear wheels, which is great news because it means your body's going to stay nicer for longer. That also might tell someone who's into tuning their car for the track that there might be some room here to move the body down a shade more than what I've done. Remembering that it's an almost ready to run, which means it's not all preset from the factory, and you can adjust these body mounts and lower the thing if you like. Now the way this thing sits out of the box, or at least the way I've done it, is it's kind of high, right? At full travel we're actually not touching the body. So it's only really touched the body at full travel and probably with some expansion from the tyres because there's such a small amount of rub on the body. I like it like that personally. If you were racing rather than bashing, which is, remember what I'm doing here, yeah, you would lower the thing just to get that little bit of extra edge on aerodynamics and to lower your center of gravity. You'd also probably cut something out from the rear so that it didn't parachute too much. That's something I haven't done and something you absolutely could and probably should do if you're racing. Again, I'm bashing, and out of all the cars, I must admit, so far I think this one might be the most agile as far as landing goes. I've certainly got faster short course trucks, but remember, I chose the power system in this car. And it was a 3652 motor, and it's a 3250 kV Hobby Wing combo with the, yeah, so it's just the 10BL 120. So it's just the cheaper of the 110 scale type motor systems. You got a lot of choice for motors and ESCs. I went with what you'd call a big brand mild brushless. And it's easy to recommend. It's not stupid fast. You could go higher kV, you could go bigger system completely. You could also just add a tooth to the pinion. I've used whatever the stock one is, the stock one being a 12 tooth pinion. So you absolutely could go bigger. Again, 32 dot pitch, and there's plenty of room on this motor mount to move out to bigger pinions. No worries there at all. Now it's actually fairly thin fluid in the center diff. Like I can move this very easily. You could also thicken that. I must admit though, just going by the way it comes out of the box, it's quite good. I like this car as it is. It's light, it feels lighter than it is when you're driving. Having a metal base means, yeah, it's gonna have some mass to it, but the wheels are light. Everything about this thing is light. This looks flimsy, right? But when it's under a body, it's not doing that, it's just sitting there. And you want that flexibility in a crash. These rounded Nerf bars on the side, they're lovely. Everything's just a nice soft plastic. That's what you actually want in a fast car. One of the reasons that the X-Max is such a fantastic basher is that it's wibbly wobbly, like it's just flexible all throughout. This is a good example of that. All the plastics are lovely and soft, but the chassis is very firm where it counts. Like there's very little twist. I can't actually detect any twist, but there'd be some, but I can't detect any, so there's not going to be much. It's got nice fiber reinforced arms that come up to each of your bulkheads. Everything's separate, so if you do break stuff, it's all going to be replaceable. I'm just a fan of this car. I really like it. I don't know what the cost is going to be for people in USA. The one thing that we Australians have as an advantage over USA people is that our proximity to Asia and our good trade relationships with China, Hong Kong in particular, are such that we often get the RC-TNTs, Hobao. Many of the cars that I've looked at, they're often for a better relative price than what we get the American brands for, because we kind of pay through the nose for the Horizon hobby stuff and particularly Traxxas. Doesn't make them bad, doesn't make these bad, it's just the way the world is. For what it is, I can't even remember what I paid. I'll stick it on screen. I paid full price. I like this car. It's so easy to recommend. If you want a good driver, one that, in my opinion, remembering I've only driven now 2 packs through it, in my opinion, it's going to be fairly durable. You could do a lot worse than the Hobao Hyper 10 SC short course truck. It's easy to recommend. I can't speak to its long-term durability. If I had to guess, I'd say you're going to need new wheels and tyres at some point. I mean, they've stood up to it, no worries at all, but that's a point of wear, and being plastic, you're going to find stuff loosens. And also the cups for your dog bones are probably going to loosen. They're just, they look like some kind of chrome front axle, whereas the rear is a hardened steel. I suspect the rear axles are actually a higher quality. The cups are the same. But the rear axles look like they're made of a better quality steel than the fronts. I'm guessing, but that's what it looks like. I have very little else to add. This is a very satisfying car to own. I think the stock body looks fabulous. I'm quite a fan of it. You do have to paint it yourself, but that's a plus for many of us. And I had no gyro on this drive, and it was just easy peasy. It pulls straight. They've got everything right to my feel. As a basher, I can recommend it. So there you go. Guys, thank you so much for watching. A big thank you to my channel sponsors who are here and supporting the channel. Thanks, guys. But I've said this before, for anyone who's watching my video, that's all I really want. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. I'll catch you next time on RC-TNT. Cheers.